Okay, guys, the H1B guy here, and today the H1B guy live, unedited, unscripted Q&A 9, discussing Senate Bill 386, what will now be House Resolution 1044. Um, so today I'll be kind of covering and unpacking the last really 24 hours of what's happened, really just kind of out of nowhere. I mean, 5:45 p.m. On a Wednesday, I got notice literally as I was leaving to take my son to practice that it was going to go to the Senate floor, and tried to get that out and get that news out. Just crazy, how quickly um, it happened. But before I get into all of it, I just want to ask you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. It helps me to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention I offer a variety of consulting services. If I can provide you peace of mind by helping you bridge the gap between your employer and your immigration attorney, please reach out. I'd love to hear how I can help you. I also wanted to give just a one big final thank you to Dr. Oscar Cabrices, who came on yesterday and joined me for the H1B Guy Live, Stamp It Out 5. If you haven't, please follow him on Twitter, connect with him on LinkedIn. Um, Really, it was a great discussion in the 90 minutes. Ironically, right around the halfway mark, 41 minutes and 30 seconds or so, we get into S386. Oscar talks about his support of it, and I go on my not sure if it's going to pass, and here it is hours later, called to the Senate floor for UC, and literally in a minute and 45 seconds passed. So just really crazy, the timeline on that. Also interesting, yesterday, I was asked the question of why am I doing this? The H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, the platform on Twitter. And it's funny because that question came right before the news broke of S386 going to the Senate floor. And I wasn't able to respond until later that evening. Unfortunately, with Twitter, it's 140 characters, and someone like me, that can kind of be limiting. So I wanted to kind of cover some of my thoughts. I've written down a little bit and just going to kind of speak from the heart here, which is I generally want to help people. And I realized that I possess a very niche skill set and that there was a gap in the market. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of people out there covering all sides of immigration, but my perspective is very unique. I offer experience from the employer side and how to get you, the employee, to where you need to be to have the appropriate work authorization. And I have ability to break down employer speak, immigration attorney speak, and employee speak, and mesh all of that together. And through realizing that I fill this very unique gap, I also have become very aware of the green card backlog. It goes hand in hand with a lot of the H1B that we talk about. And through that, I realized that I personally disagree with the country cap quota. And so I realized that I have an opportunity here to speak out for equality. And so that's what I'm going to do here on this channel. But I'm going to talk about equality for everyone. All right. And that means, how do we better our society, the American economy, for future generations, for what my legacy is, right? I've talked about my kids before. And that to me is one of the reasons why I'm going to keep doing this, because I don't want to see us be left behind. So, with that being said, I want to jump into, one last point, and that is there's still some hurdles to go here, and we're going to cover what the next steps are and what you could do here. But I am going to continue to talk about and champion a merit-based point system here for the US. It's just something I'm very passionate about, and I'm going to continue to talk about. And just earlier this week, we've already alluded to here on this channel, the UK premiered their points-based system. So we can add them to the list, right? And now that S386 has passed unanimous consent in the Senate, what's next? A lot of you may be asking. Well, it goes back to the House of Representatives. Okay. There's some amendments that the House has to vote on, right? I believe that the vote was originally back in 2019 in the House. Let me pull that up really quickly. I have that. So the interesting thing with that is the vote count, right? So they have to go back, and it has to be the amendments have to be revoted on. So what does that mean? Okay, it means that there are basically two options that have to happen. All right, it has to pass by a 2/3 majority vote, meaning the bill in its current form with the amendments. Okay, 2/3 majority vote. By my fuzzy math, puts it at roughly 288 votes. Correct me if I'm wrong on that on the math in the chat. Um, but if it passes by 2/3, then it overrides the president's veto power. Okay. And as I mentioned, S386 back in, I think it was July 2019, passed 365 to 65. Okay. Now, the second option is that it passes with a majority vote and then goes to the president's desk for signature. Now, based on all of the current information that we have, that would be January 19th of 2021 would be the last day that the current president could sign this bill into law. Okay. Um, so the third step that could happen, and the third possibility, is that if the House decides to add any amendments, okay, and then a vote is taken and it passes, it then goes back to the Senate for another unanimous consent vote. And so this is where the timeline gets very tricky, right? You're looking at the calendar, and if you pull up, the House.gov, House of Reps calendar, it shows basically there's 18 days that this bill could go to the House floor for vote. And that takes us all the way to Sunday, January 3rd, which is when S386 would have died if it wasn't approved under and voted on under unanimous consent late yesterday. So the questions now are that's what's sort of next. Okay. The questions now are what can you do, right? I think we talk about that a lot. I mean, we've got to continue to pound Twitter, right? You guys have done that for months on end and been relentless with it. It gets their attention. It just does. Twitter has become a very powerful political platform for the voice of the everyday person. It just has, in 140 characters, right? Some of us have a few more than that, but you've got to email, you've got to call, and you've got to tweet at your representative. Okay, go back and check the votes. There were 65 no votes. I looked at it; it was mainly Republicans, and I'll share a link in the description once I wrap up this stream today. But you can Google that information out there. HR 1044 House of Representatives vote. That information is easily accessible. But the other thing that you can do is donate. And, I know this is kind of a controversial topic because a lot of these organizations are competing for your dollars and your support. Um, I will tell you that for me, it all is a matter of money and power and numbers, right? If you want to truly have an impact. So again, the folks at Immigration Forum, the folks at the Green Card Backlog Coalition, Immigration Voice, GC Reforms. I think these are great places for you guys to focus your dollars and your attention. They definitely have done a very good job in working the way politics works here, which is getting in front of the right people. For it to go back on the floor like it did last night tells me that there was a lot of behind the scenes efforts that happened here. So kudos to these organizations that have worked relentlessly. Whether you disagree or agree with their tactics or not, here's proof they work, right? So So those are really the three things I wanted to cover, which is, wanted to go over again why I do this. And the tweet that I sent out yesterday after I came home and found out that it passed unanimous consent. And I'm just going to read that again for you guys who may not be on Twitter, or maybe haven't seen this tweet, but I'm just going to read it. And it says, "Very rarely am I left speechless, let alone excited about being wrong, but I was. Congrats. I'm so excited for all of you who I've had the chance to interact with and advocate for on behalf of S386. I know there's a long road ahead, but today you get to celebrate." I'll tell you, I was up till 12:30 last night. My mind was just racing. I don't know about you guys, but just crazy the impact in the news. And that tweet has over 300 likes. So that tells you guys how powerful the platform is and this message. We have to continue to talk about the issues, but we've got to do it in the right way. We've got to do it with solutions. And that's what brings me back to the merit-based system. So I'm going to roll into Q&A. I know that there are a lot of you currently on the stream. I know I've already got a bunch of questions that are already in the chat. I wanted to ask you, if you haven't already, to like this video. Subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube if you're just finding me for the first time. For those of you who may be watching this channel for the first time, I have over 16 years of technology staffing and recruiting experience. I managed an immigration program for a very large consulting organization. I have processed over 40 perm labor certifications, and I've had well over 100 H1Bs that have worked for me at any given time. So I have a very unique perspective on how this process works, but also the issues at hand, which are the cycle, something we've talked about a lot. And that's what's so big about S386, is that it's something that ends the cycle. It curbs the H1B abuse. It creates a solution for the 600,000 employees and the 1.2 million employees, spouses, and dependents that are currently part of the green card backlog due to country quota caps. So if you've got any questions, please drop those in the chat. I know this was sort of an impromptu live stream today. I really didn't plan on doing any content, but the news was just so big yesterday. And I texted and corresponded with so many of you. And I think that the excitement, the hope that was restored late yesterday, I think was something that we all really felt. And I think it proves that there's power in numbers. There's power in your dollars to the right organizations, right? So with that being said, let's just kind of jump into it and go over it. So JC, Joe Raj asks, how soon will this bill become law? Well, again, kind of covered that at the beginning here, which is there's 18 days left for the House of Reps to vote on the bill in its current form with the current amendments. If any amendments are added, it has to go back to the Senate for another vote. Okay. Depending on the way the votes shake out, if it's 2/3 majority, once the vote happens, then the president cannot veto it and it has to be signed into law. Okay. And as we know, based on everything that's being reported from the results, the president will be out of office, the current president, by January 19th of 2021. So kind of puts our timeline somewhere between now and that time frame, right? Before the inauguration. At least that's my take. I don't know. Any of you guys watching out there in the chat may have read or seen something other than that timeline that I'm providing. Please drop it in the comments and I'll share it. Hey Kapil, how you doing? Appreciate you taking the time to join the stream. Are there any still chances it won't become a bill, and why not? Why are we believing Senate would not pass it, and why it did ultimately? What will Biden or Trump, whoever gets to sign it, do when it comes to them? I mean, that's, as we've covered here. If it passes 288 votes in the House. Uh, President loses his veto authority, so it really wouldn't matter if it were Trump or Biden who puts his signature on it. Um, but where it gets a little fuzzy, right, is if it's just majority, you don't get the 2/3. Then it goes to the president's desk for signature, and he does have veto authority. And wow, talk about the ultimate FU. The 45th president of the United States would be able to send to high skilled temporary foreign workers right before he exits office, if that were the case. So that's why it's so important to go back and look at the numbers. 365 votes, yes, in favor of in the vote that happened in mid July of 2019. Go back and look at those 65 that voted no, and let's pound those, right? You've got to stay on the ones that were yes, but you've got to go to the 65 no's. You got to start there because understand 2019 and where we are now, kind of post COVID, totally different environment as it relates to the US economy and as it relates to American jobs, right? There's been this sentiment growing. So that's my thoughts on it, Kapil. Thank you for your two questions. Really appreciate you taking the time to join me here. All right, so Shivat asks, please correct me if I'm wrong, but both HR 1044 and S386 have different aspects covered as part of their final approved version. So a new consolidated bill has to be drafted and passed again. Should one be inside? Oh, sorry. And then should one be inside US to submit and get approved GCEAD advanced parole? So I'm going to go back to the different aspects. So my understanding, again, I am uh, a, not a lawyer as it relates to the law. This is just my opinion, my interpretation. I may be incorrect in the way that I understand this, but my understanding is that because amendments have been added, the bill was previously approved, voted on by the House of Reps, has gone to the Senate with multiple amendments now, iterations that have been added. Uh, those amendments now go back into really what's a new form of the bill of 1044, and that's what has to be voted on. So once that's voted on, if it's 2/3, as I've said, restricts the president's veto power. If it's just majority, president does have that veto authority. So it could be interesting. Should one be inside the U.S. to submit and get approved GC advanced parole? Best advice here is yes. I would always offer that any sort of change of status from H1 to EAD, adjustment of status, I would advise you to be in the country. Of course, this is where your immigration attorney comes into play and how they advise you. If you have questions about what they advise you, please feel free to reach out to me and we can kind of try to dissect what it is. But my best advice to you on this, my opinion, is remain in the country unless there's absolutely a reason necessary for you to leave. I'm seeing some reports on WhatsApp. There are individuals getting consulate appointments and getting their H1 stamps. It's starting to happen. I'm talking about specifically in India, of course, because that's where kind of the largest faction is currently. So that seems to be starting to happen. A lot of that goes back to Judge Jeffrey White's recension of the travel ban. And then back on November 18th, where he comes with a lot of updates to travel.state.gov and what they're required now to provide. Of course, earlier in the week, we had Judge Jeffrey White, rescind the H1B interim final rule. So this has been just a huge week for immigration here in the U.S. and worldwide. Big news day tomorrow for the H1B Guy news because we also have the F1 OPT ruling. So there's a lot going on right now, and again, the UK going to the merit-based point system. So just so much happening right the week after Thanksgiving. Wow, November 30th, December 1st, 2020. And what happened yesterday on December 2nd, just huge news in the world of U.S. employment-based immigration. Hey, sorry, Samir, good to see you. Sorry to join the party late. Congrats on passing this bill, but we still have a way to go. It's a small step in the right direction, which raises my hope. It depends on what happens next. Also, not clear the 70% and 50% deal with this bill. Also, timelines. Do you think this is approved in House today? Can President still veto this? So, yeah, we've covered that a good bit. I'm not sure about today. Again, there are people that are much more inside on the workings of when these bills are going to hit these chamber floors. Um, again, as I said yesterday, I didn't find out until 5:30 yesterday, 15 minutes before it was going to the Senate floor, that this was going to happen. And honestly, just was absolutely surprised. But what's interesting is that that tells me that the political favor was no longer necessary. And for those of you who know what I'm referring to, that would be Senator Rick Scott's um, blocking with the theatrics that occurred back in August. So that political favor now is no longer necessary. The election is over, an election in which the White House and the current administration lost, and whom Senator Scott was providing that political favor for. And so, that no longer being necessary, kind of out of nowhere, S386 came back to the Senate floor for unanimous consent. So, thanks, Samir. Appreciate the question. Hey, Ram, how you doing? Now that the bill is passed, Senate assuming President signs the bill, when will it be in effect as a rule? What should a person who's waiting in the backlog with an approved I-140 now? Yeah, I think that goes back to what we just talked about a little bit earlier. I mean, literally anywhere between today and January 19th. I know that's several weeks of time, but that's unfortunately, I just don't know. What I do know is that worst case scenario, um, you've got Thursday, I believe, is December the 31st. Let me pull up the calendar just really quickly. Yeah, so Thursday, December 31st would be the last calendar day in 2020. So we're talking about 28 days. And again, if we take that out, it really is still counting today, 18 days that the House of Reps could have uh, uh, HR 1044 back on their chamber floor. So, but what should you do? Who's waiting in backlog with approved I-140? Well, I think you celebrate a little bit today, right? And go into the weekend with your chin up, because you guys have been hit in the gut a bunch. Um, Having the approved I-140 is so powerful for you, and I know your story more than most. You work for you're a permanent employee of your current employer, you're vital to the success of their organization. You're in a situation where you can just sit and kind of wait and see how this plays out. Monday, I'm going to be putting out another the H1B Guy forecast predicting January 2021 visa bulletin. So I think you kind of monitor what January and February's visa bulletins look like, and let's hope that, as I've joked about, that rapid forward movement isn't a farce, because it sure has been since we saw that term in October. But I think that you are in a position that a lot of your colleagues, meaning other H-1Bs who have been in the U.S. as long as you are, Rom, would be envious of. You have some security that others don't, and I think that benefits you to be in a situation where you can be a little bit patient, which I know is so challenging. Very easy for me to say on this side of the table. It's a lot easier for me to say than it is for you to do. Um, Jensen Joy asks, what are the chances it can come to the floor in such a small time? I mean, I think very good. I think when you have a bill that passed by 365 votes, that tells me that there is a lot of support for it. So the biggest thing for you here, Jensen, is wherever you live, go back and look at who those reps are in your state. And it doesn't even have to be that your particular reps, but anyone. If any of those 65 that voted against it, you want to contact, that's where you shoot them an email and you call their office and you offer support of 1044. That's how American politics works. So thanks for the question, Jensen. Really glad to have you join me here on the stream today. Samir says that would be the worst parting gift by Trump to all legal immigrants. Yeah, I mean, I joked about it, but it's possible. That's the scary part about it, is that that is possible. But again, when I look at 288 versus the 365, you're talking about almost 80 plus votes that would have to change their mind. What's the probability of that? I don't know that answer, but I don't think that that's very likely. I think the probability of that's probably pretty low. That's my 2 cents. I could be wrong though. Speaking of which, as I admitted earlier, sure do love the fact that I was wrong about the video that I did. The H1B guy responds, will S386 eventually pass? So many of you have been checking out will S3 that video. Also, what's the nexus between Ayla and Senator Durbin? You've also checked out, the Senator Scott S386 blocking, where we talk about the political favor. I'll share all of those videos in the description of this stream for those of you who may have not seen it. But just really interesting to go back and listen to some of that content and how accurate a lot of it was. But again, I think that just tells me that what I'm doing here is I'm on the right path. I can't do it without your guys' support. Thank you to all of you who've taken the time to join the stream here. If you haven't already, please like this video. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you have questions for me in surrounding S386, because that's really all that I wanted to cover here today with this live stream. Post them in the chat. I've got a few more that I'm going to get through. Wasn't really intended to go super long today, but I just wanted to kind of get my initial thoughts, and I may put out a more long form video on this. But my initial thoughts on what's next, what's going on, and what can you do right now, because I think that that's very important. Pratiba asks, what are chances of this getting through in 2020 or anytime soon? Yeah, I mean, as I've covered a good bit, I think highly likely now. I mean, the news yesterday, it, while so surprising, as I said, for those of you who have followed this channel for any amount of time, have attended any of the live streams, I am very rarely held speechless. And last night was one of those times. So I'm very confident. For the first time in a long time, when I look at S386, House HR1044, I'm confident. Maybe that doesn't mean we have to let up in talking about it, because I'm going to continue to do that over the next few weeks until it hits the House chamber floor. And all of you need to do the same. This is the reminder. This is the wake up call for that. Okay. So Pratiba, thank you so much for joining me. Keep your hope. Don't back down. Continue to be vocal about what you want and why you want it. Samir, trying to go through this, but a lot of legal terms involved in this. This is Greg Siskin's analysis. Can you shed some light on what everyone is talking about, amendments made for Chinese folks? Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. So there was an announcement that was put out, a news release, USCIS on October 2nd of 2020, restricting travel for members of the Communist Party, totalitarianism. And so that's what this is referring to specifically. Okay, so it will be interesting to see, because what this is talking about is basically members of the Communist Party and whether or not they are going to be admitted, and whether or not it gives them the right to become a permanent resident. That's my very 5,000-foot interpretation of it. I'll have to read into it a little more, let experts like Greg dissect it, and then I'll read it and try to form my own opinion on it, and I can circle back with that. But that's just my kind of quick overviewed interpretation. You can go back and check out that article. I'll try to pull it up and share it in the description as well. That was on uscis.gov. That was posted on October 2nd, 2020. It refers to this. So that tells me that this was in the works for several months now, which is pretty crazy. So, hey, Syed, how you doing? Hello, H1B Guy. Good to listen to you again. So what do you think if this doesn't get to House before our new president takes office? Well, so that's the thing, right? My understanding is that it has to get to the House by the end of the year, and be voted on. Now, I might be wrong on that. If any of you have read up on it, and seen something different, let me know. But my understanding is that it has to be um, voted on and approved, majority or 2/3 majority, before January 3rd. That's the Sunday um, after New Year. So December 31st is the last calendar day of 2020 that the House has a session on the calendar. So that's the timeline that I've got. If any of you guys see anything different, post it in the comments. I'll share it here before we wrap up. Um, and if any of you have any opinion on, the totalitarianism ruling, let me know. So, and what's the chance of this getting vetoed by Joe Biden? Well, for that, Syed, to be vetoed by Joe Biden would require a majority vote in the House, not a 2/3 majority. And it also would mean that the bill wouldn't go to his desk until on or after January 20th of 2021. If you go back to one of my videos I did initially when I talked about Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's immigration policies, one of the things on there I talked about was he is in support of eliminating the green card backlog, and talked about um, removal of country cap quotas. But a lot of that to me felt like rhetoric for the election and appealing to the moderate vote. So, but I don't think that he would veto it if it was only a majority vote. I don't see that. Um, I wish this time you were not wrong, and that's referring to my confidence in this getting passed. So thanks, Samir. Um, so Pratiba says, "Well, I like your confidence, but will the House controlled by one party approve what Senate by another party approved, and will sitting president sign it? Looking at all the chaos going on right now, yeah. I mean, I think when you look at what are the options, kind of the fingers off the hand, right? Um, it goes to the House and is a 2/3 majority vote and goes to either president's desk for signature. It has a majority vote and goes to President Trump's desk for signature, and he vetoes it, or he decides to sign it. Or it doesn't go to his desk in time and it goes to newly inaugurated President Joe Biden's desk for signature, and he vetoes it, or he decides to sign it. Or the House adds amendments, and then it goes back to the Senate for another vote. And then if unanimous consent happens, then um, only then would it go to the president's desk for signature. Um, I'm confident because of how out of nowhere this happened yesterday. Now, again, as I said, there was a lot of folks working behind the scenes that knew this was going to happen. I'm just a little removed from that. I am. But as I said, I got notified before it went to the floor, and just really appreciative of my contacts who let me know. And I'll tell you that the way it went down and how quickly it went down yesterday is what gives me this confidence. It tells me that the powers at play here have realized that they're in the minority, and that the onslaught and the way that they're being painted is something that no longer they want to, politically support. So, hey Sanjay, how you doing? Are 140,000 green cards issued every year? Yes, in employment-based preferences, they are. Um, and again, that's 7% country caps for country of origin. And when you break that down, roughly about 6,000 plus or minus per country. It's not a lot, but again, employment-based preferences, you've got a vast majority of the allocation that goes to probably 25 or so countries. So appreciate the question, Sanjay. I'm all for increasing the number of employment-based green cards and looking at some sort of reform around family-based preferences and diversity and refugee type visas. Again, I'm not saying we need to limit that, but I'm saying we need to look at what's mutually beneficial for everybody. So Samir says, for me, frankly, DOL wage level rule strike down by court was a major win for this year. Not asking for much from a crazy year like 2021. Thank you, H1B Guy, once again for everything you do. Yeah, someone on Facebook said it would be effective October 21st of 2021. Yeah, there was a timeline on the bill, and when I'm just referring to when it's signed into law. When we're talking about the transition, there's all these transition periods around it, Ion. But really appreciate you sharing that. And then the October 21, excuse me, October 21st of 2022 is then when the transition period for the DALCA happens, I believe, where the legal kids that age out come into play. So yeah, October 21st of 2021 and then October 21st of 2022 are the two big dates that we'll be keeping our eyes on as this is signed into law. Ion, thanks so much. Appreciate you you sharing that. So Pratiba says yes. Also, people are speculating it will take up to 2024 to clear the whole backlog. I thought it was longer than that. Um, it looked like there's a 10-year phase for it to happen. I'll have to go back and look at the data on it, but it's not like a flip the switch and then 2023 and 2024 the backlog's completely cleared. At least that's not the way I've interpreted it. Um, that probably makes sense how it got approved out of nowhere. Yeah, I mean, I think it caught a lot of us off guard, except for those that were in the know, right? And kudos to Senator Mike Lee, right? He championed this bill. 9 years of his time in the Senate finally paid off for him. This was a huge win for him and has earned him a lot of political credibility. I truly felt in the middle of the pandemic the government would do something for the doctor community at least, if not for people like me. I mean, I'm not a critical guy, but a practitioner is. Yeah, I've talked about that. Even the PTs, when I had Himanshu Kanchik on the H1B Guy Live Stamp It Out Q&A 3, we talked about how PTs are just as important as the MDs. Rehabilitation after COVID is a key part of the medical treatment. So yeah, again, we've talked about S3599. Under the HEROES Act 2, there were some provisions for nurses and physicians and using some of the unused green cards. So we'll continue to monitor the medical. I know I've interacted and talked to a lot of medical folks recently who just feel like they're working hard to have their story told, and they're fighting on the front lines, battling this pandemic for us. So. And the last one that I have, it says, only thing makes me worry is will the so-called lobbies who held it back so long let it go through now? Yeah, money talks. It does. There's a lot of variables. There's definitely wolves in sheep's clothing out there. Politics is a cutthroat death match. So yeah, it's possible. But I put that percentage very low. So that's all I've got. If you really liked what I did here today with the live stream and breaking down S386, kind of my initial thoughts the first 24 hours after the news broke yesterday. Gonna ask you to please like this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. It helps me to produce more content like this for you. I also would ask you to click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime I do an impromptu live screen like this. You're notified that you know, hey, 1 o'clock Eastern, H1B Guy Live's going live. So need to check in and see what he's talking about today. But thanks to all of you who dropped comments and asked questions. Appreciate the interactivity. Going to ask you, if you haven't already, to follow me on Twitter. Would appreciate that. I love interacting and chopping it up with you on Twitter. Come join the H1B Guy channel on Telegram. There's also an H1B Guy channel chat function, which allows you to interact and drop comments and share news. Sorry, I'm still new to Telegram, so I finally have figured it out. But really just appreciate the community that we're creating there. We already have about 25, I believe, members. So come join us, see what we're talking about over there. And again, one last thank you to Dr. Oscar Cabresis for joining me yesterday on the H1B Guy Live Stamp It Out. Tomorrow, a lot of news to talk about. Working on a few things here, so please make plans to come join me. The H1B Guy news for the week ending December 4th, 2020. But with that being said, I want to say thank you. Samir, thank you. Really appreciate it. Again, going to keep the hope alive. That's really what it's all about. But for those of you who have streamed the entire content video here today, really appreciate it. For all of your support and everyone who has subscribed to the H1B Guy channel, who's left me comments and encouraged me to keep going, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I just really appreciate it. The H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.